Gentlemen, good morning. Or, yeah, good evening. Uh,
Good morning, sir.
guys,
Um,
all right.
Good evening.
Good evening. Boy, this is one of the last evenings of the year. We've only got, what, four left? Three left? Something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Four
man.
left.
Yeah, well, I am trying to get arranged here in the room. Okay, good. All right. Good. We are about four after. Actually, a housekeeping item. Shubham, for you, when you try to join this call, does it not let you in without being admitted? Like without somebody?
Yeah, yes, I tried both Gmail accounts, but it was showing that you will join if someone will allow you
Right.
in. Yeah.
How about Anand? How about for you? Does it just let you in?
Yeah.
What is going on? There's no difference between. Okay. So Shubham right now, and
So previously it used to happen with me also. Sometimes, not always.
you know what might be going on? Let's see if we can take care of this. Let me share my screen, and then we'll get into the call. So if I go into my calendar, if I take a look at our community calendar, the Layer 5 community calendar, if I go into this invitation specifically, I think this is the difference, is there are about 90 or so people that are included in a mailing list. The mailing list, and those are people who've come by, they've contributed, they've done something here. They're included in this mailing list. It's community@meshery.dev. There are other individuals who've been explicitly invited, or invites have been explicitly sent to. And so the difference here may be, like for Supra, who we're going to introduce here in a minute, I think, and for Shubham and for Nikhil, like
My Gmail ID is there.
okay. So I guess what I was trying to figure out is if the difference is that people are explicitly invited versus just being implicitly invited through the mailing list. That might be the difference. That might be something for us to try. So maybe before we forget, maybe Shubham, maybe if I can explicitly add you, and then we'll see next week if that fixes the issue.
Yeah, but in Wednesday meeting, this type of problem is not there because one day Nikhil and Asis organized the meeting initially, and then Girish joined. So I think in Friday only I face this problem.
Hmm. Right. Which might make some sense because on on our Wednesday calls, if I go to next week, so on our Wednesday calls, I think everyone is explicitly invited. Individual invites are sent out. And on Wednesdays, you do not have this issue, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, that could be the deal. All right, okay, well, if that bugs you guys as much as me, but it I don't know. There's no need to ask for permission. Like, hey, you should just be able to join. So good. So, all right. This is our last community call of the year, actually, now that I think of it.
Yes, it is last.
Uh, that sounds like a sad thing, and it's not actually. We've got there's so much to do inside of the Meshery project itself. It's actually interesting. I was speaking with Raghav, whom some of you know, and he had, I think part of his sense of the project was, oh, that it was, yeah, and we will have been meeting for like a year too. That's a good point, Nikhil. I think part of Raghav's sentiment was his feeling about the project was that, oh, like it's fairly well complete. It's not totally complete, but it's mostly there. And that was surprising to me because, I mean, I think on one hand, it's a compliment to those that have been contributing to the project because it feels well-rounded. It feels like a good piece of software, a good, to use. But the interesting thing is actually it's just at the beginning of the project. That's actually the reality of it. Is I consider that it's almost not. It is worth asking people to use it now, but I consider that we just passed that line. We just recently passed the line where we should go be telling a number of people, hey, come try the project, give feedback, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, ask for enhancements, point out defects, that kind of a thing. We absolutely need that as a project. Absolutely, we want everyone to try it. But it had only recently gotten to the point where it really adds enough value that I consider that people should be trying it that much. Anyway, the fact that Raghav had said that was an excellent reminder to me that we need to have a bit of a high-level roadmap for the project because there's so much more to do. It's really just at the beginning, and so it's a good reminder to me. It's a good sentiment, I think, to carry forward into next year to understand that we're just getting started here. Part of the reason, I think in the past, we'd had a high-level roadmap for the project that was laid out, and I don't know that it really was that helpful to new community members or to existing community members, in that many of those high-level things, we're not there yet. And by that, I mean, many of us who are working on the project aren't necessarily ready to take those things on holistically. And so having them laid out, I didn't consider was very helpful. Upon reflection, I think it's good to have some roadmap there, irrespective of whether or not people are ready to take those things on. And by this, I mean, like, these are larger capabilities, things like, well, one of the things that Nikhil is doing a bit of research on right now, and that's a visual topology, a visual canvas, an interface that shows you where different service meshes are, what services are running on them, what the applications are, what their workloads are. That's a project unto its own. It's very large, and that's one of about 7 different really significant feature sets that we envision for the project. So anyway, action item for me, I need to go write that down so that it is at least clear for everyone else. Good. So before I bring up the meeting minutes, I actually want to take a moment to say that Supra has joined us today, which I'm really excited about. This is fantastic. Supra, we've got some old timers on the call, some folks who've been around the project for a long time. Do you want to maybe take a moment and just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hello everyone, I'm Supratik Das. I'm a third year undergraduate student studying at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, from India. And yeah, I'm not that much experienced in this stuff. I was just started almost 6 months back, and there was a college project based on this deployment, a deployment system which we are building for the college, and based on that project, I got into this kind of stuff, and yes, I'm really enjoying it doing this.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's super. Do you go by Super Tick or Supra?
Yeah, most of my friends call me Supra. Most of them.
Okay. All right. Phew. Okay. I wasn't sure
Mhm.
if I was abusing your name.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Are you on holiday at the moment, in between semesters?
Holidays are going on, but they are going to be over soon, like in a day or two.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, nice. Well, then my Indian-based geography fails me, but of the university that you're attending, um, a number of the other community members that are on the call today, many of them attend university in Jaipur. How far away are you from Jaipur?
It's a day's journey, about a day's journey from my college, from my
Okay,
city.
got
It
it.
would take a day. Almost less than a day, but almost a day. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Then Nikhil and Anand and others. I was just talking about Raghav a minute ago, and I think he's attending a different IIT university. Do you guys remember which one he's going to?
Yes, sir. That is IIT Guwahati.
Okay, Guwahati. Okay, and so Supra for you, Guwahati. That university is pretty far away as well.
Sure. Means that's in another corner of the country. Like
Okay,
not another corner, it is on the eastern side and mine is on the northern side.
okay.
Quite far.
Well, we'll have the whole country covered at some point. This is great. So that's actually, let me bring up the meeting minutes and I'll put a link to the meeting minutes in the in the chat here. So it's super fantastic to have you. Very excited to have you. This is great. Uh, I'm going to pull up the meeting minutes, and actually, that's a topic of conversation is universities actually and partnerships. So there's a specific topic. It was Gunjan had highlighted that we might have a bug on one of the sites. There's the layer5.io site is the overarching kind of set of pages. It's the overarching community site that captures a number of the different projects that we have. It captures the fact that we participate in Google Summer of Code and in the, hopefully soon, even more so in the CNCF than we already do today, but it has Meshery, it has a landscape. It also highlights the fact that we have, let me adjust my browser. It highlights the fact that we have relationships with a couple of different partners, only two of which are posted today. The reality is there are a few others that we need to put up. The other ones aren't necessarily universities. Um, and so, okay, so I bring this up to say it's fantastic to have students on as community members. We have a number of, I guess, professionals, if you will, or those that are off and into their career that also contribute. I think last week it was D-Raj, who's at Citrix. He was demoing his CPX adapter. He was demoing last week. But for some of so anyway, on a related note to universities, Gunjan, you were pointing out that you weren't quite sure if, hey, maybe there was a bug behind this button here because on your system it wasn't necessarily doing anything when you clicked it. So
Yes.
Okay. So let me. Well, this is kind of hard to share. Kind of hard to share because only one screen gets shared at a time, or I'm sorry, only one application. But when I click it, what happens on my system is that my mail client which is actually, in this case, my default mail client is Apple Mail on the iMac that I'm on. It brings up Apple Mail and creates a new email. On the system that you're on, though, does it have a mail client configured?
No, sir. I don't have any mail client installed in my PC.
Got it. Can just to help make sure that that this isn't an issue, can anyone else try that button and see if what happens for them?
I tried that, and my mail client is opening. So I think this is the problem of Gunjan's system or something. Because I'm using Ubuntu and mine is Thunderbird, I guess.
Nice. So Thunderbird starts up and it opens up a blank email, basically. Nice. Okay. Yeah, Gunjan. Maybe if you were to configure, Thunderbird or some client, it might.
Okay, sir.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, it's the only link, I think. Well, no, I think, yeah, it might be the only link on the site. I don't know if you can see it down in the lower left-hand corner of my browser. I think I'm sharing my browser now.
Yes, you are.
Okay, and it's a mail too. Uh, it's a hyperlink that's not to an HTTP link, but it's a mail to. So if you can see it right here, the href is mail to : and then an email address. And so instead of opening up your web browser pointing to a web address, it opens up your mail client. And yeah, so anyway, cool, good, yeah. There were a number of issues, I think, across a few of the different sites that Gunjan and Ashish were both just taken care of. It's great. Okay, so I kind of jumped around. Good, I think we addressed that one. Coming back here a bit, Supra, you may have already done it, but these meeting minutes, feel free to jump in and help take notes as we go. Some of us get so engrossed in what we're talking about, we forget to take the notes. And some of us forget to do action items like the ones that I've taken in the past. So, okay, just a couple of general things for all of us. And that is that last time I'd spoken to the notion that there was a new slide template. So for any of you that end up talking about Meshery, either at a meetup or a conference or just with others, or at school or wherever, that there's a slide template out there that you're welcome to use to talk about the project. Things, if you end up presenting, certainly let me know so we can help boost, elevate that on our social media channels, as well as if you need help reviewing, and we're going to try to be purposeful about this year to the extent that there are conferences that you might speak at. I'd love to help get any of you guys up on the stage to talk. There's a Kubernetes Days. I think we talked about this last week, but Kubernetes Days India. I thought there are 2 of them upcoming. Let's see. Okay, one of them just concluded. Kubernetes Day India. This was in Bangalore.
And the one is in Delhi, I guess.
Oh, the next one that's upcoming is in Delhi. Okay. Let's see. Kubernetes Day. So actually, maybe there's a second one upcoming for Bangalore and another one in Delhi. And yeah, if they have their yeah, I guess the call for papers, that maybe it already closed. Yeah, they already have the talks list. Wait a second. To be announced. Okay, that's the keynotes to be announced. So okay, so yeah, I guess the call for papers closed. Shoot, but this is exactly the kind of conference that that I'm thinking of. that you guys would be able to go. I can help you go speak at, go talk about the project. So there's a bunch of them. So don't worry, more will come around. Speaking of those, just there's a meetup that I run in Austin. I may have talked about this before. There's a couple of them that I run. Actually, one is for Docker Austin. The other one is basically it's the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation meetup. And we held a recent event talking about service meshes in general. But we've begun to lay out a bit of a schedule over the next 6 or 7 months of different talks. So each of these talks are potentially things that any of you could deliver yourselves, because the presentations will already have been made. When I give the talk, it'll be recorded and you guys can watch it and study it, and you could potentially go give the same one, and that would be great, or change it to be how you'd like for it to be. But so the next one that I'll likely give here in a couple of weeks will be literally just on Meshery. It'll just be an introduction to Meshery. I'll be bringing it up and showing people how it works and teaching them those things. And then we'll do a workshop on Istio. We'll miss a couple of months because there's some conflicts, but we'll come back and talk about performance benchmarking using Meshery. We'll create a Linkerd workshop, very similar to Shubham, the workshop that you're going through now. We'll create one for Linkerd.
Yeah.
We'll do all these things. And so my point is, these will be made available as community resources for any of you to go and use, just like the community resources that are out there today. So Supra, I'm pretty sure you got an invite to access the Meshery community drive?
Yeah,
You
I've
do?
got.
Okay, cool. Good. There's a lot of resources in there. They're all open to you to use. One of the action items that I have actually is to make sure that there's some up-to-date backgrounds for Twitter or LinkedIn, to the extent that some of you guys have begun to affiliate with the project, and to the extent that you wanted to use some of these graphics, that you're certainly welcome to. So I need to go back and make sure that some of these get updated so that there's one for LinkedIn and Facebook and other things. So one thing that I skipped over, or that I spoke to quickly, I said that as we're scheduling these meetups, one of those will be to give the workshop on Istio, and that we'll create one for Linkerd. And the Istio one is already there. Whoops. And Shubham is, I think, working through that now. The thing is I'll point out that it's available to all of you, and it's actually a really good thing for all of you to walk through. And it's self-paced, it's free. If you go to layer5io.io, there's a workshops area, layer5.io/workshops. And really, we've given this workshop at a bunch of different conferences, and it's really the same workshop. It's just kind of been built up over time. And it's one of the repositories. So these will take you to the slides and to the labs. The labs are one of the repositories inside of the Layer5io organization. And it's a good one to walk through, because actually the way that it's written now, you'll use Meshery to help you stand up. It's a good way of getting introduced to Meshery and all of the capabilities of Meshery. Because I think even for some of the old timers on the call today, not all of you have necessarily had a chance to go look at how Prometheus and Grafana get hooked up to Meshery. And so it's one of those things that might be beneficial to all of you to walk through that workshop.
Yeah, that's I was following that repo, and actually it was very helpful for me to set up Istio and going forward to that. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, good. Yeah, I should be more diligent about pointing that out as and when people join the community, because yeah, it's just it's a self-paced thing. So and walking through it really helps you get comfortable with Meshery too. Okay, so actually on that topic, there's maybe one other thing, and this is maybe Supra for you. There's as you go to digest um, service meshes and what they do and why they're here, and there's a free ebook that's a quick introduction to the space that you might benefit from. I actually posted it in Slack just a week or so ago. You can either get it for free here, or I think I put the whole PDF inside of Slack. So, okay, last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, good. Yeah, I do. Last week, D-Raj from Citrix demoed the adapter. Really, the adapter, the state that it's in now, should be, should be a beta status. And so there's a few issues we've opened up to move that from alpha to beta. Moving on, actually, there's a couple of different topics that I wrote down that we had been collectively talking about in Slack. And so I figured we'd go through them here because it's kind of nice to talk about them. So Gunjan, we knocked that one out. Ashish, actually, is Ashish on the call?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there he is. All right, very good. So thanks for going through all the static errors that have been uncovered, in the Meshery Istio adapter. As you go, we were talking about what makes an appropriate comment for the different packages. I don't know if what we had discussed in Slack was enough, if that was what you were looking for, or if a short discussion here was going to help.
No, sir, it was fine. I need to go through it again, and yeah, I will be able to understand it properly.
Okay, nice, good. Go back to the. Okay, the next thing you know what? Actually, this next one's going to be real interesting. I hope. Let's hold off on it for just a moment because I think it'll take a little bit longer. This one here was that I just recently opened up an issue to enhance the Meshery.io menu, and so actually Supra is working on part of this menu, so that's fantastic. And then I think was it Ashish? You and I were talking about how to enhance this menu a little, and so I figured I'd describe that briefly.
Yes, sir.
Right now, we got the site up really quickly before KubeCon, and that was great. We were able to point a lot of people to it, but it's missing a number of, it's prominently missing a number of resources that people are going to be interested in. Right now, it's a flat menu, meaning there's no submenus that will pop up. So if I click on community, it just goes to that page. But it would be good to have a few other resources listed. So there's an open issue that describes that a little bit better. It should be renamed actually, because at this point it's more of an overhaul of the site menu. And so it would ideally look something like this, where the first link might be something like the docs, because there isn't a link to them today. The community, which is there today, so that's good. Or the blog that's there today, but then a new menu that actually has a sub-menu with these resources. And so I think this is fairly self-explanatory, but so this is just an update to that menu. So Ashish, I don't know if that's something you're thinking of taking on, but whoever does, hopefully this brief description helps. So as we move Meshery toward being inside of the CNCF, this is an example of a recent project to enter into the CNCF. And so, like a lot of open source projects, it has links like this, links to the docs, a description of the project itself with its code of conduct, and link to GitHub and Slack and the mailing list. And so that's fairly similar to what we're looking at here: Slack, the mailing list, GitHub, our community calendar, these things. Okay, so that's what that was about. Two other topics. So one, Shubham, I think you're looking to take on the enhancing the Prometheus and potentially the Grafana connections that Meshery makes. I figured we might benefit from some discussion on the call.
I also need the uh, how I can proceed to the issue, as I was found getting some issues, how I can proceed. So yeah, I need some help.
Okay, yeah, let's walk through it, because there's a couple of them, and actually I'm glad that Nikhil is on, because he has worked on some similar functionality. Nikhil, did you do some similar functionality? I'm trying to recall, was it for Kubernetes?
Yes, it was a Kubernetes.
Okay. So one, Nikhil is a great resource on this. All right, so here's the issue. So context for everyone on the call. We'd like to enhance Meshery and have some consistent behavior for they're called chips, if I recall correctly. It's a React component. It's called a chip. It looks like this. Let me bring up Meshery. Hopefully I have. Well, how embarrassing. I don't have Meshery running. How is that possible? So I'm starting Meshery now. Oh, that was fast. All right. Okay. So within Meshery, most of the chips, these I don't know what else to call them, but yeah, these chips that you see, they'll give you. They've been improving over time. They give you a little bit of information when you hover over the adapter chips. These are connections that Meshery has to either to itself, to its adapters, which is what these are, or to other systems like Kubernetes or like Grafana or Prometheus. Most of these chips, if you as a user were to click on it, what Meshery would do is send a quick connectivity connection request, just to make sure that Meshery, the server, can talk to that other thing. And because there's a few of us that are relatively new to the project on the call, and because it's just a good review, let me pull up this architecture here, this generic architecture, and remind us that Meshery as a system is made up of a few different components. There's and in each of these components run inside of a container. So there's Meshery server and the Meshery web-based user interface that I was just interacting with that gets deployed. Meshery by default will deploy with a few different adapters, a few different service mesh adapters. And you can configure how many you want to deploy and of what type and that kind of a thing. Meshery is set up to be able to speak to Kubernetes environments, in a first-class way, and that's kind of what's being shown here. Is that this is a service mesh deployed in a Kubernetes environment. Meshery will also retrieve metrics from Prometheus. It'll pull in dashboards from Grafana, and so the point is, Meshery communicates with these other systems. It communicates with its own adapters that are running in different containers over gRPC. Meshery will communicate with Prometheus and Grafana over HTTP. Sometimes those, because these are network-based connections, sometimes those connections get broken or the network isn't there, or maybe Prometheus went down. And so as a user of Meshery, at some point you may want to come over and just verify that why it is that you're having trouble connecting to an adapter, or if you are. And so you can come over here and run a test like this. In this case, I'm having Meshery is able to connect to its adapters. Right now, I'm actually not connected to Kubernetes, or the Kubernetes that I loaded up here. And that's because in my system, this Kubernetes is not running local to me. It's behind a VPN. It's on a private network somewhere else. And I'm not running my VPN client right now. So while it's valid for Meshery to have the Kubernetes config loaded, it doesn't necessarily mean that Meshery is able to communicate with that Kubernetes cluster at the moment. Now I can go connect my VPN client and we can get connectivity to Kubernetes, but I don't think that we need to necessarily for what we wanted to discuss here. What we wanted to discuss is that this issue is saying that we'd essentially like to have that same behavior implemented for connections to Prometheus and connections to Grafana. So if I hover over this Grafana chip and I try to click, nothing happens because it's not clickable. It doesn't have that connectivity test implemented. And if I were to be connected to to Prometheus here, the same thing. There would be nothing to click because that functionality hasn't been implemented. And so Shubham, as you consider this area, that's essentially what we're trying to achieve. At a high level, what we're trying to achieve is to provide the user the ability to click on either the Prometheus chip, or well, both the Prometheus chip and the Grafana chip, to do a quick connectivity test. To just, in the case of Grafana and in the case of Prometheus, it would just be an HTTP call to maybe grab the version number of Prometheus or something like that, something very lightweight and simple. So I'll pause there and ask, Shubham, did you already understand all that, or did any of that help? Did you have other questions? I think we didn't talk about areas where this is at inside the code, but
Yeah, this far it is good, but I will get the files where I can edit or the codes where I have to make changes. But yeah, it was helpful,
nice. Okay, good.
and I will connect with Nikhil if I got stuck. Yeah, so
Perfect. That's great. Yeah, hopefully what you'll find is that the code that's been used in the case of Kubernetes, some of that might serve as a template for you, because in the case of Kubernetes, it's an HTTP call, just like it will be an HTTP call to Grafana and Prometheus as well. Okay. So I think there's that topic. Did anyone else have a comment on what we were talking about just now with the Grafana and Prometheus enhancements? I'll say that, and so I'm not able to communicate with Grafana in this environment, and again, that's because the VPN isn't connected. But you know what? I'll actually just connect it real quick, just to prove the point. So good. So I think okay. Well, all right. Maybe I won't prove the point. I think I've got old data in here. We probably wiped that Kubernetes system in the time that I've been using it. So anyway, I will say this, that so this functionality is great for troubleshooting Meshery. But it's not very helpful necessarily to what Meshery as a project is trying to do. It's trying to help people manage these service meshes. But it is necessary plumbing, necessary functionality to make sure that Meshery as a piece of software is running well and that people have easy tools to troubleshoot their environment that they're running in. Over time, I would expect that what we'll do for this dashboard is this dashboard, the stuff that you see here, will probably be moved to another area, probably be moved over to the configuration area, the settings page, so that people can do those tests from here and troubleshoot their setup, but not necessarily have that present on the dashboard. The dashboard will be much more about the workloads that are running in these systems, how well Linkerd is running, and et cetera. Yeah. Moreover, there's more than one type of test that people are going to want to run against a Grafana or what have you. So it may be that over time someone would click, instead of invoking that connectivity test, they may get a quick menu that asks if they want to do a connectivity test or something else. Okay. So Nikhil, putting you on the spot a little bit, you've been working on a few different things. One of those was beginning to look at visual topologies, and I don't know if you've had any early findings to share, not to demo, but just to maybe talk about your investigation.
Yeah, so it was D3 and Cytoscape. Chris shared it with me. Just now I was having a look on Cytoscape. It basically uses D3.js, its own JS, that is cytoscape.js library, to show biological networks. It is recently using the new library. Previously, it was basically for the biological purpose. Recently, they have developed to a new software. And considering to D3, it's a new library which uses D3 force as physics in the code, which has some force values on the different nodes that we use in the library. That when we click on them or pull them, it will strain up to that point and then again retrain back. You can use this to deploy our networks or the nodes, basically the system files that we are connected, the background process that are running on our system.
So some of you, so hopefully just for the rest of the folks on the call, just to the extent that you can see the D3.js and Cytoscale, what they're capable of as JavaScript libraries. We're looking toward building out a visual topology somewhat similar to what you might see inside of Kiali, but distinct from Kiali in a few different areas. If it was going to be the same thing, then we might consider trying to embrace Kiali and helping extend it. And as a matter of fact, the product manager for Kiali and I are scheduled to meet, I believe, next week to see if maybe there's an integration that we do want to do. There are a few fundamental things about Kiali that probably prevent us from ingesting it holistically into Meshery. But I mentioned Kiali because it is similar in concept as to what we're looking to do, which is to help people understand, what's going on inside of the service mesh, what's happening when their interface. I'm sorry, not in their interface, what's happening in their systems. Okay, so that's that topic. Nikhil, of the time that you spent looking at Cytoscale and D3.js, are there any any immediate pros and cons that are coming that are surfacing?
So till now, actually, I haven't been in so depth with them. I'm on my way. If I find anything, then I will share.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay. So there was another topic that I think Nikhil, you're also focused on, and that is a little bit of an enhancement around the way that Meshery shows all the information that it shows in the menu. And
Yes, sir.
you were enhancing.
Basically,
Go ahead.
it will hide all the adapters if they are single. If there are more than one adapters, then it will show. Otherwise, it will only show the adapter name. That is the type of the adapter from the navigation panel.
So I'm going to ask Motion, if you're on the call, if you're able to talk, I figured maybe we would describe this to you and see if this makes sense to you. So there's so Motion, are you there? I don't know if you can hear us or talk, but we'll see. Okay, so hey, Motion, if you hear us as we're going through this, please just interrupt me, but because it would be great to get your feedback on these changes. So I'll give a little bit of context as to the enhancements that Nikhil is making here, and I'll actually bring up the issues that he's working on. And so the overall, so there's two issues I think that he's working on right here. It's 529 and 530. The Linux Foundation, they've been asking us to create some service mesh training, and that training would go up on edx.org. If you guys are familiar, I think I talked about this in the past, but edx.org, it's an open source platform for all kinds of all kinds of courses and teaching. And the Linux Foundation has put up things like an introduction to Kubernetes and a few other courses in the past. For the Kubernetes course, about 100,000 people have taken the course. And so they're asking us to put up one for an introduction to service meshes. And so as we look at doing that, I mean, we're very much inclined to and are moving forward with doing it. And as we are, we're looking at using Meshery as the tool by which people would learn various service meshes. And that's half of why we built Meshery in the first place. And so as we look at building out this course, there's a couple of small enhancements that I think are helpful to people learning the meshes and interfacing with them. And so one of those is, let's walk through them. One of those is 529. It's hide the read-only field. Hide the read-only field with the adapter URL if there is only one adapter for a type. So let me play this back. Let me show you guys what this means. And that is, when you're connected to a particular service, Meshery adapter for a particular service mesh. In this case, this is an adapter of type console. When you deploy Meshery, its default configuration is to deploy one adapter of each type of service mesh that it supports. You can connect that, in this case, by example, this is console, so The console adapter, Meshery can use that console adapter to speak to any number of console deployments. So you might have multiple console deployments in different clusters, different regions, that kind of a thing. You can use just one Meshery console adapter to speak to all of those, or based on your preference, you might want to deploy a second or a third Meshery console adapter. And if you do, you'll just run it in another container, and it'll run on a different port, and you would see a list of those in the menu here. And that's great. That means Meshery is flexible. Most people are not that advanced just yet. They're not running multiple adapters, multiple service mesh clusters, multiple regions, that kind of a thing. And so they don't, and because of that, they don't necessarily need to be burdened with an overly complex menu. And so what Nikhil is working on is a couple of things. The first one is that since there's only one console adapter deployed on my system right now, there's really no reason to list out this info here. There's some cleanup to be done. And so I'm not sure exactly what Garish wrote here. So currently each connected adapter has its own page in Meshery. In these pages, there's a read-only field which shows the adapter URL. That's informative, but the desired behavior is that, even though this is a read-only field, even though it's helpful, we don't want to show it when there's only one adapter of a given type. Meaning it's helpful, but it's just too much information. You don't need to see it. And there was no choice anyway. It's not like you would go to, I wanted to interface with the second console adapter. There isn't a second one, so there's no need to show it. At the point by which there's multiple of them, it might make sense to have that show, to show this, and to let it be a dropdown. So just a very simple cleanup of the user experience. That's that issue. And again, if anyone has any comment, feel free to just interrupt as I'm. The second issue that's related to this was about the navigation menu. And it was sort of this kind of the same concept of cleaning it up a little bit. And that is when there's only one adapter of a given type deployed, we don't necessarily need to show this submenu item. We can just show console. People could just click on console and go to this very same page because there's only one choice. They don't need to necessarily see the fact that there could be multiple choices until they have multiple of the same adapters deployed. So again, it's just a user experience cleanup. And so Nikhil and I were recently discussing that I think he's more or less, I think you have these more or less knocked out already, Nikhil. Of one of the comments that I had given, I had checked out your PR, which was exciting to see. I built it, and when I had run the system, and if there's time, maybe I'll do it here. I had built Meshery, and I ran. I just chose Istio, but I ran 2 Istio adapters as a test, and maybe I'll show you briefly so that you can do the test as well. But I don't think that I'm trying to. It's been a few days now, and I'm trying to recall the exact issue that I saw. But I don't think that we saw the exact behavior that that we were looking for. So let me share a different screen and show you guys how you can run more than one adapter. I think, and Motion, if you're still here, this might be of interest to you as you do some multi-region, multi-cluster things. I don't think that this functionality does all of what you're looking for, but that's why your input is important, because I think that's where we're aiming toward multi-region, multi-mesh support, multi-mesh of the same service mesh. So, all right. So in my environment, make this a little bit bigger. In my environment, I've got Meshery running. Run a Meshery CTL status, and we see that I've got one container of each type of the supported service mesh out there. I can run another instance of one of those containers and have Meshery connect to it. So different ways to accomplish that. There are a few different ways to accomplish that. Maybe the best way is to, there are too many ways to accomplish that. So maybe the best one to do is to just show you how to do it as a system overall, as a Meshery system overall. And in Motion's case, yeah, oh, very good. Motion, I didn't even see that you were providing feedback already. Great. Awesome. Oh, Motion, yeah, thanks about the edX comment. That's, I am taking a note on that. That's fantastic. And then in your case, Motion, again, just to re-articulate your case, it is that you're working with a single mesh, but a single mesh, a single type of mesh rather, like Istio maybe, or something. And so, but you're deploying it to different clusters, and you'd like for a tool like Meshery to be able to help I think in your case, you're probably wanting to run a single control plane that spans multiple geographically distant clusters. Either that, or and you'd like for a tool like Meshery to help with that, or you'd like to get a bit more redundancy, and you want to run duplicative control planes in one control plane in each region, so that you've got some improved resiliency, but you need for those two different control planes to be more or less federated, to work together across the two different data planes that they have and the two different clusters that you have. So there hasn't been much work in Meshery on that use case just yet. It's absolutely something that we're wanting to do inside the project. The Meshery does support that to the extent that you're able to set up, like, and I'm about to do it actually, 2 Istio adapters or 2 console adapters to 2 of the same type of an adapter, and point one at one environment and the other at the other environment. And Meshery will perform the functions that it does today around a bit of lifecycle management of helping deploy and apply some updates. For Istio, it'll vet its configuration and that kind of a thing. It doesn't have anything explicitly written into it to help show you the different, like whether or not the 2 control planes are synchronized or doesn't. Like, there are a number of things that I consider that Meshery could do to assist in this regard. It doesn't have those. It doesn't do that today. Those are things that we do want to do. It does have the first thing that we need to build in there, and I'll share it, is basically create the concept of an environment. And right now, when you go into Meshery and you go to the environment page, it'll let you load up one Kubernetes config, and only one. The intention and the desire here is for you as a user to be able to define multiple environments, multiple clusters, so multiple Kubernetes configs, and then let you navigate between them and switch between those environments very easily. The architecture of Meshery we've considered for that as the project is going forth, but we just haven't gotten to multi-cluster support just yet in terms of like multi-Kubernetes cluster support. So Motion, actually, maybe I should take an action item to write up what we consider that functionality would be, and that before we start on it, we have you vet to see if that's hitting on the things that you're looking for, because you're likely to be the first user in this case. And so we should probably focus on the things that you'd be excited to see. So I'm going to do that because I'd hate for us to get there and then tell you it's there and then you not actually find it useful. So and Motion, do you, so that we can prioritize correctly, is it Istio that you're doing in a multi-cluster way? Send a motion for review. Istio, got it. Very good. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so just looking at the time, we're about 4 or 5 after. I was going to take us through kind of the multi-Istio adapter example. I don't want to hold everyone on a Friday night for most of you. This is one of those things that actually we need a short video on anyway, a short set of instructions. And so, right, yep, Motion, I think you're correct about the status of Linkerd in that regard as well, about multi-cluster. So let me do this. Let me take an action to not only write up what we consider roadmap for multi-cluster support, but also do a short video recording of how you can have multiple of the same type of an adapter, the same type of service mesh adapter in Meshery, and share with you guys. And I think, Nikhil, that will be helpful for what you're working on as well. Nice, okay. Okay, good. Well, does anybody have any other topics they want to bring up before we conclude for the final time this year? Nope. I've got maybe one announcement. I just got an email talking about the fact that we're being asked to give the Istio workshop, the Istio Service Mesh workshop that I was pointing out earlier. Not only are we doing that for edX, but O'Reilly is emailing now asking for us to deliver that at Velocity. They renamed Velocity to Infrastructure and Ops Conference. So that won't be until June. So if any of you, like Shubham, are going through it, please point out any bugs, because we would hate for other people to run into it. So.
Yes, sir, I will.
Nice. Okay, good. Fantastic. Super. I'll try to chat with you, a bit over the next couple of days or so. Whenever you're free, just ping me. We'll get you better introduced to the project. So. Other than that, it's a happy new year for everybody. Hope everybody has a happy new year.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy.
Yeah. Be safe. Okay, very good.
Actually, it's on first. It's on Wednesday.
Oh no, it is again. It's on the same.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you guys. Maybe let's. I assume everyone's gonna be a bit tired from some late night activities. Maybe we'll take a poll in Slack and just see who all would like to continue on Wednesday morning. Or Wednesday. Yeah, I don't know. We'll take a poll in Slack and see if it works for you guys. If not, we'll cancel.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Cool. Okay, very good. See you guys next year. Nice motion. All right. See you guys.
Bye everyone.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Happy weekend.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Nice.